This right here is the KSO Show, your home for K-State coverage. Stay current on what's happening in the Wildcat world of sports. By the end, you might want to tell your friends about us. Or not. But hey, you should. Let's get it.
It is time for another edition of the KSO Show, brought to you by Tallgrass Tap House. We're at Tallgrass Tap House tonight. It's myself, it's John Kurtz, it's Grant Flanders, it's KSU_fan. He's having a Twitter argument right now. Let him finish it. It's good. He was nice enough to come here straight from a game or practice. Which was it? Neither. Parent-teacher conference. So the most boring thing possible. But he's here. We appreciate that. Guys, before we get into the real meat and potatoes of this, because I've got some thoughts about it, how is everyone doing? Kurtz, how are you doing today? You doing good?
Doing great, man. I got a special edition of the Kurtzy here. It's not Boulevard wheat. It's
Is it better?
1863 wheat. I think it's better, yeah.
I think I'll say a hot take. I think 1863 is better than Boulevard wheat. So it makes sense to me why you think the Kurtzy's better with it. Do they know what have you told what the Kurtzy is? Have we explained
that?
Yeah,
the Kurtzy is it's a take on the Nancy. Shout out to So Long and
Correct.
Lucha. They do Old Milwaukee with pineapple juice, but if you just use a Boulevard wheat, it's enhanced. I think it's better, and so I've started calling it a Kurtzy. So you're welcome. You can go take that and run with it.
And Fan has also tried to get the Kurtzy to be a thing, which I appreciate. Outside of the Kurtzy talk, how are you this evening?
Doing really well. It's good to be here again, and I'm getting used to wanting to be here. Missing last week was
that's
hard.
So good to hear.
Yeah.
So
because
it's
in all
fun.
sincerity, I feel guilty asking you to come. One, because you don't get anything for it, and two, you don't live across the street. So to hear you say that you want to be here is good for me to hear, because I feel guilty every time. And last,
No, you just skip
all right. So let's get into the topic.
Flando, I care how you're doing. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Thank
Okay.
you, Kurtz.
Okay.
Thank you, Kurtz.
You look fine. Hey, if I were to ask you before we get into, again, the real topic, and I'm sorry if you're listening to the KSO Show, ready for sports talk, we haven't done it yet. We're going to get into it in a second. But, yesterday there was a poll on Twitter that said that asked if John Kurtz has an attractive head or not.
I saw that.
Not a face, but a head.
Head.
Basically,
And
if I were to shave it, would it look
good?
Attractive?
And the tone you've already used, Flanders, I already know the answer is a no.
No, I like this. I can already see part of his head shaved off, and it looks really good. No, he's got.
I did just get a haircut.
All right.
Yes.
The other thing that I'll say, embarrass Kurtz with, if you look at his head, would you say it's normal size, small, or large?
I'd either say normal or large.
Oh, really? Says it's small. So nobody. I'm the one who doesn't understand how to judge Kurtz's head. So let's get into some Big 12 K-State basketball talk. That'll be the rest of the show. We'll have no more fun the rest of the way. I didn't go to broadcasting school, right? K-Man didn't put me up in some fancy dormitory and say, let's learn about segues like they did with you. So congratulations. We're also going to work backwards today, from back to front in the show, which is proving my lack of knowledge in how to run a show. I want to get it off our chests and talk through it. Let's get some predictions on the record. Not about Baylor. We're going to get to Baylor and talk about that game at length here very soon. But K-State in general, we all know where it is. It's not very complicated. K-State is tied with Texas Tech for first place. K-State controls its own destiny. Worst case, they share the Big 12 title if they win out. Best case, they win out and Tech loses one game. K-State wins the Big 12. It's that simple. Let's just start with Flanders today. Let's lead with our strength.
Wow.
Flanders.
Strength.
What will K-State's record be in its final 3 games? And once we get past that, we'll talk about where they finish in the Big 12. So for now, just tell me, Baylor at home this Saturday,
Yep.
at TCU Monday, Oklahoma at home the following Saturday. K-State's record in those 3 games.
Well, let's start with the Baylor game. I'm obviously, I said it before the pod to you.
You're scared.
Yeah, I'm a little
You're scared.
scared. A little
Yeah.
scared for this game. I think this Baylor team's really good, and they've got some pieces.
Only one game back.
Yeah, only one game back. They got some pieces back in Makai Mason, and he hasn't been playing well. I think what scares me is if he does turn it on, if he gets it back to where he was at before pre-injury, he hasn't shown that that's going to happen, or it's on the verge of that. But if it were to happen, K-State very well could lose this game at home because of all these other guys that Baylor has had come along and play very well for them as well. They're a physical team. It's going to be a tough game. I already know it. But I'm still going to pick the K-State to win that. Then you go to TCU. TCU, that's another one, a turnaround, quick turnaround against after a physical game against Baylor. You go down to Fort Worth. That's a tough matchup.
It is.
TCU it's still scratching and clawing, trying to make sure that they can somehow get their tournament bid.
Right.
And this is going to be a game that would be huge for them to win. They know that going in, so that's going to be a tough game to win. Still picking the Cats. Big deal.
Love it. He says big deal. And I imagine you're picking to beat OU at home to clinch the Big 12 title.
And then picking OU at home.
And when an OU game gets here, we'll all talk about it in more depth because I think Oklahoma's a good basketball team. I honestly do. And I'm not trying to dismiss them, but I can't imagine. And if you guys do what you want to do, you're your own people. I just would be surprised if one of you says, yeah, beating Baylor, beating TCU, losing to OU. But if you do, it's fine. Tell us how so we don't have to waste our time watching these games. Tell them how they're going to play out these last 3 games. Baylor, TCU, OU.
Well, I would lean toward K-State finishing undefeated in these 3 games. I agree that Baylor's a challenge, but I also like the matchup. I like that Bruce has won 5 straight over Baylor teams, and I like that they don't really like to play defense because I think that benefits us a lot. So that's what I like initially about Baylor. TCU, I like that we play them after they play Tech.
I do too.
They're gonna have to put a lot on the line Saturday playing Tech, and I think that benefits us going there Monday night. And then Oklahoma having that week, almost a week off, which is big for our guys. You know, we have some injuries that we're dealing with, so I like that going into the Oklahoma game. So there's things to like. I'm sure other sides could show me things that not to like about those 3 games, but I lean to thinking that this team has lost a game, then got on strings, lost a game, got on strings. I think they're going to go on another string here.
I feel the same, and I don't have any better reason to add than what Flando or fans said, so I'll go to Kurtz. Without spoiling, I know on K-Man we talked about, and I think the math's right. It's more likely, just from a pure percentages standpoint, that K-State loses a game in this stretch. So without spoiling you, one, tell me what you think the record's going to be, and I'll ask you a little bit different, a twist in the question. What game were you most scared of as a K-State person?
I think the game I'm most scared of is TCU just because of the quick turnaround, and I think K-State's biggest issue right now is not only the health of Dean Wade, but the confidence of Dean Wade, which Bruce Weber talked about today, that's tied into the injury. Him not being healthy, having some things go against him early in a game seems to snowball even more now because he's not healthy. So anything that can affect that and make it a little bit worse worries me at TCU, and they've proven to be a team capable of beating better teams in the Big 12, certainly with Iowa State. I would take K-State to finish 13-5. Now, I would also tell you I would take them to finish 13-5 and tie with Texas Tech to win the league, because I still think it's more likely than not that all 3 teams drop a game. And part of the reason I say that is because just watching the games, none of these teams are dominant enough. But I'll also throw some numbers at you, and that is that...
Oh, here we go. Nerd alert.
Well, first of all...
Hit the nerd button.
If you just look at it...
Nerd alert. Nerd alert.
I don't know how to recover from that. If you just look at it and say, okay, the best teams here are 11-4. So they're losing once every 3.7 games.
That's true.
There's 3 games left in the schedule, so that's not too far off from everybody dropping one. But then you're talking about Kansas being in here too, and I suppose Baylor. I'm disrespecting Baylor a little bit.
I think it's fair what you're doing. I mean, if Baylor wins Saturday, they'll earn it all right back.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah.
But for right now, Kansas is 10-5. They lose 1 out of every 3 Big 12 games.
They literally do.
So you take that and combine it with, these numbers actually came from C.J. Moore of The Athletic today. He went through and looked at, there have been 7 times out of the 14 in the streak, or I guess this would be 15 with this year, that it's been legitimately in doubt with 3 games left whether or not Kansas would win the league. Out of those 7 years, that'd be at least 14 teams, right? Because there's at least one threat every year, but it's more than that because there have been some other years. Say 16 teams, for example. Only 3 of them have won out the last 3 games.
Wow. So
three out of roughly 15 or 16 teams have actually won out. So I would tell you that all the math points toward all these teams finding a way to lose a game. And I think there are enough losable games on the schedule for everybody there, too. But I still have K-State winning the league with Tech, and Kansas not extending the streak.
Nerd alert.
It's honestly, it's great stuff, and it's. I think Kurtz is right. I think if you were being a purely analytical, I've got fan in me. Of course, KSU_fan probably has some fan in him. It's his last name, and then Flanders, has some fan too. And notice the Kurtz. We all do. We're not going to lie and say we don't. But I think if you're able to back off and look at it that way, I think Kurtz is right. I will push back just to push back because I'm a math guy too. I'll say, hey, 3.7 is closer to 4 than it is 3.
It is.
So I would say K-State's got to play 4 games to lose 1. And you're saying 1 out of 5 teams has gone 3-0 down that stretch. That would say there's a greater than a 50% chance one of the 3 teams left will go undefeated. Sure. So what you've told me is K-State is going undefeated down the stretch. That's all I heard. You gave me all those stats, all that history about what's going to probably happen, and all I heard was K-State undefeated. Great, wonderful.
Well, your point is definitely fair in that I'm generalizing a little bit
But
here,
they're all accurate.
because I'm taking some numbers that say I'm going to the extreme of most people want to say, well, Texas Tech looks so good against Kansas, they're going undefeated. The Oklahoma State game scared them straight, and they're going undefeated. And Kansas, easy schedule, they're going undefeated. My pushback to that would be, no, more likely than not, those things are not going to happen. So I may be taking it too far to one extreme and then predicting them all.
No, I don't think
but
you
that is
are.
the way that I would go.
I just wanted you to say undefeated. So no, I think what you said is totally right. So we got going down the line. Flanders 14-4, Fan 14-4, me 14-4, Kurtz 13-5. But all 4 of us obviously say K-State wins the league. Kurtz says K-State ties with Texas Tech. Now the question I guess for you two then is that 14-4. Do you think Tech wins out and ties K-State, or does K-State win it outright? Tech's 3 games. Flanders, they go TCU on the road this Saturday. Then they've got Texas at home, and then they go to Iowa State. So it's not easy.
No.
At TCU, I think it's by far the hardest of the 3 teams left. At TCU, Texas home, at Iowa State. Do they win all 3 of those?
No. I mean, they lose at least one. They could lose TCU and Iowa State, but I for sure see them probably losing to Ames.
Yeah. And the same question, does Tech get through that string undefeated, you think, or do they drop one?
I think they drop one because mainly because they've got 2 road games.
Yeah.
And I think Iowa State will be playing for a lot that last weekend.
Yep.
And then they're playing for a seed. I think they're in the tournament, obviously, but they're playing for a seed. So I think because of that, they likely lose that game, but they could lose at TCU this Saturday, especially if they play like they did Tuesday night.
The reason, and somebody can push back, and I'm being sincere, like if you disagree or see it a different way, and again, glass half full K-State guy here, but the reason why I like K-State so much to win the league is, so compare them in Tech, right? Like I will take K-State's 3 games, and I know you're the same, Kurtz. I'm not trying to talk at you. I just like to look at your small head. So I would much rather play Baylor at home, at TCU, OU at home, than at TCU, same game as K-State's playing, at Iowa State, which is terrifying, and then Texas at home. So to me, if K-State and Tech, you're comparing K-State's path to me is significantly easier. And then if you're going to Kansas, you're already a game ahead of them, and I would still rather play Baylor at home. KU plays Baylor at home, so that's the same. And then the other 2 games for K-State are OU at home, KU's at OU, and then at TCU, KU's at Oklahoma State. So I'd take the KU Oklahoma State matchup for sure, of course, but otherwise I still would take K-State's 3 games as opposed to saying send K-State to 2 road games and Baylor at home, which they already have. So
Well,
that's
the way
why
Oklahoma State's still clawing too.
Right, and Oklahoma State, I agree, and so that's why when I say I'm probably more confident than most that I think K-State at least gets a share because they're in first and they have the easiest path left. I know the injuries, and that's a problem. But does anybody see it different? Does anybody see those 3 games and say, actually, I'd rather play so-and-so's 3? Or are you all the same?
I think
I'm the same.
I think to me, Tech is by far the toughest schedule. I think Kansas is by far the easiest, but Kansas is a game back. And so that's really where the equation comes out to me as far as all of that is concerned. And I think K-State's is very manageable, probably on the Kansas end as opposed to
me it's similar to KU.
As opposed to the Texas Tech end of things.
Right.
Yeah, and I also look at matchups. I think sometimes it's easy to look at games and think we're better than them.
Good and
But Iowa State beat Texas Tech last year. Iowa State was not very good, but they beat them in Ames by 18 last year.
And then beat them in Lubbock this year.
And they've already beat them in Lubbock this year. So, I mean, my thought process would be they're more than likely to win at home, and there may be something about that matchup with Tech's defense or Tech's offense against Iowa State's defense that benefits Iowa State. And honestly, so I can see that too.
I mean, the Texas game, like, is Tech going to beat Texas? I don't know what Kerwin Roach's status is going to be, but especially if he plays, like,
that's why they're scheduled. I agree. That game's hard. All 3 of their games are hard.
Yeah, it kind of drives me crazy, the line of thinking. And did they say it on the broadcast or did I see it on Twitter right after the game? I can't remember, but this sets up perfectly for Chris Beard because he didn't lose, but he got his team's attention. Right. And, like, I mean, I don't know. I think we buy too much into that stuff. Like, does that team really need to be extra motivated and focused when they're trying to win a Big 12 title at Texas freaking Tech? Like, I don't think that that's really an accurate assessment.
That annoys me too, because it can't be both, right? They can't be the favorite because they just beat KU by 30 at home and are cruising, and then also be the favorite because they just got tested by Oklahoma. It can't be. I think that's what your point. Maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but it can't be both, right? We can't say everything that Tech does, or anybody, K-State, KU, whoever, that it's all good. And so no, there's nothing positive. And you guys can disagree again. There's nothing positive other than winning the game. But by beating Oklahoma State in overtime at home, that team that K-State just beat by 40, like that's not something that makes me more confident that Texas Tech's going to win out.
Yeah, no,
I would agree with that. I'm saying, like,
Chris Beard should write Cam McGriff a thank you card.
Cam McGriff's fine. Okay, all right, let's do it. All Big 12 off the bus team. We've already determined some of this. Cam McGriff's on it. Doak's on it if he's healthy.
Xavier
Sneed on it.
No Wigginton.
Who'd we get?
Wigginton.
Yeah. Wigginton's on it. And then the fifth, I mean, there's a lot of guys. Like, I thought, I had one that I lost. Desmond Bain looks great. You know, but is he too muscular?
Ooh, Bain, yeah.
You know, I mean, he's a good one. Who else we got?
Who's like a big, tall dude.
Jackson Hayes is terrifying, like the length to look
Hayes
at.
is
He's
really
just
good.
Derek Culver.
Ooh,
That's
Culver, West Virginia. Correct. That's my team. That's my all-look team.
Yep.
I got. It's not going to be very good.
Well, honestly, Jarrett Culver looks pretty
Jarrett
damn
Culver
good too.
could be on it too.
Yeah.
Who are we kicking off for Jarrett Culver? Let's see. We know that
Bain is.
Cam McGriff's on it.
Yes.
Xavier Sneed's on it.
I mean, you could kick off
Because
Wigginton.
Culver's got that
Wigginton.
size where you
Let's
look
kick
at
Doak
it.
off because he's out for the year.
Yeah, let's do that.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So
Throw on Culver for it.
So now we've got Culver, Sneed, Cam,
Wigginton?
McGriff, and Wigginton. Is that our five? Is that, did I forget somebody?
Bain? Did you throw in Bain?
He's six man.
He's six man.
Six
I love
man on
the
the
way
all-look
Bain
team.
looks, but I would rather have the Culvers from appearance perspective or Wigginton. Wigginton is also very muscular.
Yeah.
Like,
He is.
very thick.
He is.
All right. So we've all predicted K-State to win the Big 12. We either share. And we all have outright, don't we? Because you have Tech. No, you have Tech.
I have a
shared,
share with
right?
Tech,
So
yeah.
Kurtz has shared. None of us. I mean, Kansas deserves to be discussed until they are out. I mean, none of us see them. I think they lose at Oklahoma, and I think you're right. I think Okie State gives them problems in Stillwater. I think KU wins.
Here's this too. So I'm stealing a lot of things from CJ Moore. I just talked to him on the show today.
Yeah.
But Baylor is a very good three-point shooting team. Fan, I'm sure, can attest to this. They shoot like 41% of their shots from three, and they're making 39% in Big 12 play. Kansas really struggles defending the three and giving up a high percentage of three-pointers.
They had a lot of open looks in that game Monday night.
Right, so Baylor actually plays into the hands of being a good matchup for Kansas at Allen Field.
And they almost
I agree.
they had a weird first game with them because it was without Tristan Clark. The first game they put without Clark, they got down like 20 at home, and I stopped paying attention. And then somebody told me it was like a 4-point, 5-point final.
Yeah.
And I thought, no way, it never got that close. And apparently, obviously, it did. You know, I mean, so yeah, that's not even a cake. They'll win it because they're at home. They've won all their games. But they have 3 games left that all 3 of them you could look at and make a case that says, gosh, you know, they're bad on the road. They have to play 2 road games. Then Baylor's pretty good. But we'll get back to that. We all kind of are on the same page with that. Let's look at the game that's coming up because, like you said, or one of you smart people said, no, Bruce Whipper said it today. You can't go 3-0 if you don't beat Baylor. So when I talk about the Baylor game specifically, related to that, I want to ask Kurtz a question about today's press conference because you mentioned it earlier. Were you a little surprised at all when Bruce just flat out said that Dean's not a very confident guy? Did that surprise you a little bit?
I mean,
we know
he's
but
right.
Right.
He's right, and Bruce, I think this goes into sometimes Bruce doesn't have a filter necessarily at the press conferences. So I don't know if that's one. If you asked later on, I know you guys said you saw him like hanging out afterwards. Maybe if you asked him then, he would regret it. I don't know, but I think it's one of those things. It's like we all can see what's going on there, and we all know basically. So I don't know that there's a ton of harm in actually verbalizing that. I would say this: I'm not overly surprised Bruce Weber said that.
That's a good way
I
to
don't
say it.
know that some coaches would have said that about him.
Exactly. That's a great way to say it. He did add some context later. He's a good kid. He's confident. He believes in himself. He's just not one of these guys, that's going to always think he's the best player in the world. And one of the media guys, might have been Ryan Black, hollered, you mean like Barry Brown?
Yeah, right.
And Bruce said, yeah, like that. So, I mean, he did try to go out of his way to say that he is a good, confident kid, but he did flat out say he's not the most confident guy, which I'm with Kurtz. We all know it. Like, it's clear that he's not the most arrogant, confident, give me the ball every time guy. I was just a little surprised, and maybe I shouldn't have been, but to hear Bruce say it. But
I was too, but it also is, as you said, it's something that everyone seems to know that Dean is this way, and Bruce, to me, isn't afraid to say something in a press conference. that it seems that everyone believes.
Right.
Which is, it's obvious that Dean's never been the most confident guy on the court since freshman year. He's obviously gotten better and better at that as the years have gone on.
Yeah.
But I think you ask him straight up what the question is, and Bruce is going to be honest with you because he knows this is nothing that needs to be hidden because everyone knows it anyway.
Right. Fan, I never prepare you for anything I'm going to ask you, but I'm going to go ahead and do it right now. I saw some posting on the board today talking a little bit about what Dean can or can't provide, from a health perspective and what he can still do. Same for Cam Stokes. I guess that's where I want to go. Going into the Baylor game, right? If Dean Wade is 70, 65, 80% healthy, whatever it is, you talked about he could still be a factor for K-State right at that point, right?
Yeah, I think we've seen Dean be 75, 80% and be a factor already this year.
That's true, yeah.
So I don't think it's anything new. But I think, especially against Baylor, as long as he has some mobility in the top of the zone, he's going to be able to make either get those shots at the elbows, mid-range game, or catch and pass, catch and shoot, catch and drive it once in a while. There's a lot of things he can do inside that zone that helps. I mean, I think –
and that don't require him just bursting.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that really showed up against KU is he had athletic defenders on him playing. I think KU kind of played the defensive version of what Iowa State did to us in Manhattan.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's possible to have the defensive version of that where
you just nailed it one night.
You just go off on defense. And I don't think we think about that as fans, but it happens. And oftentimes when I've heard Ken Pomeroy talk about this. Oftentimes when we analyze our teams, we only look at ourselves.
Correct.
And we don't really look at, did the other team play well or did they play bad? A lot of times even when we play well, we don't think, well, the other team sucked tonight. We think
totally
we just
right.
outplayed them. So I think Monday night was a case of KU outplayed us.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it wasn't so much that we were just terrible. It was more that they were great.
Right.
And so all that aside, I think Dean can still play well. I don't think Monday night means Dean is done for the season. I think a lot of our fans seem to have that mentality, and I think it's wrong because I think he's still going to have some good games from here on out.
I do too, and I think it's so well said. I bet you hadn't talked about it, of course, because no one wants to hear about it. I like to talk about it. The Kansas game Monday night, that's how I felt about it. Kansas played really, really well. After falling down 10-3, they got back on track and played really, really well. I didn't think K-State didn't compete, or didn't play hard. I mean, that's not what happened. Kansas was just better, and they were at home. And they've done that to everybody at home this year. They beat Texas Tech, who I think is a great basketball team. We all do. Kurtz talked about how I think ESPN would love to have them in the Final Four right now. But, I mean, they beat Tech by 20 at home. Like 2 weeks like this has happened. And that's credit to Kansas, of course. But I'm the same way. I'm not done with Dean Wade because of that game. So, moving on again, this KSO show, we're in the Tallgrass Tap House, 320 points. I look like towards the door, like it's going to be
every
there,
time.
and it never is. But I feel like as I say an address, I should be looking at the door. Also, Harry's, Bourbon and Baker, both here on points. Appreciate their time and their effort and their kindness to sponsor us. But Kurtz, staying on the Baylor game, right? This is a team that K-State, of course, beat in Waco. K-State had Cartier-Jada. Baylor did not have Makai Mason or King McClure. McClure played a little bit against Texas, I think, last night. Mason played a lot, didn't play very well. How concerning is that to you? Let me really rephrase this. Would you rather be the more healthy team, which is what Baylor is right now, or would you rather have 4 days off me playing at home? So who do you like better in that scenario?
Yeah, I think logically everything leads me to you'd rather be the team playing at home that's well-rested. Because really both teams, Baylor's
beat up too,
equally or more bitten by the injury bug this year. King McClure just came back for one game. Makai Mason still is clearly limited, and he's a guy that's been bothered by injuries for the last 3 years of his career. So that's not something you would think is just going to snap your fingers and he'll be back and totally fine. So I think from that standpoint, all things being equal, you'd say, okay, K-State is at home. They do have the break. They're going to be, again, I don't buy as much into the motivation stuff, but, this is a team that understands. They have a sense of urgency, certainly, with the way that they have to play. I lean that way. I would lean that way. But Baylor has also been a team that has just flown in the face of a lot of conventional wisdom when you think of those things, because they've reinvented themselves once when they lost Tristan Clark and they went to shooting threes. Now Makai Mason, who was the driving force, has been in and out of the lineup and not as effective, and they still find ways to win games even when they fall behind quite a bit. So they've been pretty resilient and been able to go against what you would think your expectations should be for them.
Absolutely. Flanders, is that, and you can say no, you can say it's something else, but is that why you're scared of Baylor? Because they have been successful in reinventing themselves 3 or 4 times this year, and every time I look at Baylor and think they're done, they win 2 or 3 more in a row. Is that why you're afraid of them? It's just their resiliency and that kind of deal? And how do you, no prediction yet, but what, but what about this game, concerns you, or do you think K-State needs to take advantage of?
I think that is very concerning. That is scary, combined with the fact of you talking about Makai Mason and such, and I have a scary feeling. I guess it's just as a K-State fan sometimes. And holy cow, I just said I'm a K-State fan.
Whatever.
It just seems like it could click for Mason tomorrow. He could be the player that he has been.
You're scared of that Trey Young and Norman game where
all of a sudden he finds himself back with all these other guys that have been playing really well for Baylor and getting them wins. And then you bring in a McClure that is obviously going to be very limited, probably only played 7 minutes last night, but. To me, I think that is what scares me the most, the fact that it is the fact that they have manufactured ways to win without their top guys, but you add in the fact that the top guys could still make it click, and that would be scary for K-State.
Fans, staying with this Baylor game, you obviously put all this on the site, on the board already. Is he doing a Finalysis with you?
He is, yeah.
Okay, so you're probably going to hear on Finalysis either on PowerCat Game Day or the game, whatever else radio show fan goes on. There's all sorts of them. But, I mean, if you could get – so you talked earlier, and you're right, that Baylor's not a particularly good defensive team. When you say that, what kind of numbers are you looking at, or what kind of things are you seeing that leads you to the conclusion that they're not a very good team on that end of the floor?
Well, first of all, they're 8th in the league in defensive efficiency, 1.08 points per possession.
That's a good start.
They don't really do anything really well. Like usually teams that are bad,
over a bunch,
they have one thing that they're good at. Baylor really doesn't have one thing that they're good at. Since they played us, their defensive efficiency in those games, even with some wins, is 1.13 points per possession.
So even worse.
Which is even worse. Yeah. On the road, they're in Big 12 play, they're 1.09 points per possession. So their efficiency just is not very good. The one thing that you notice about that really sticks out to me is their free throw rate at home on defense, which means how much they foul basically, is 36%. On the road, it's 48%. Oof. So I think, and if you think back to our Baylor game,
I was just going to say,
they play so physical in their zone. They're a very physical team. Scott Drew kind of prides himself on being physical. And the thing about them, if they're physical, they get in foul trouble. They're not a deep team, and so that hurts them even more. So free throw rate not only hurts you getting opponents to the free throw line, but it hurts you because you've got guys sitting on the bench. And that's going to be one of the things that I'm going to watch this week is if K-State gets foul calls, if they attack, and then force Baylor to get in foul trouble, which could be a case.
It's a fascinating thing because it's a good example of when you can take numbers and, bring them into reality. Because as you were talking, I was thinking about that first Baylor game, right? And I'm not going to say the officials were bad or whatever. I don't know. I was just watching the game. But there were 4 or 5 plays in that game where I thought Baylor was incredibly physical and clearly fouled K-State and it wasn't called. It probably happened both ways. I'm not saying K-State won the game, whatever. But it's interesting to hear someone say statistically they get called for fouls on the road because I thought at home in the Farrell Center that day they probably had 5 or 6 more fouls than got called. Before we go to all out picking the Baylor game and making clear who we think is going to be the key players in that one and what's going to happen, I do want to run through the rest of the Big 12 this weekend a little bit. If I can get it to pull up, guys. I'm just trying to kill time with my talking right now. But we'll go through all those games and pick them, and then we're going to finish off with a little bit more deep dive or deep prediction. Man, when is Saturday at, guys? So I'm just going to be honest right now. I'm just going to be honest. I keep trying to get to the schedule. Hey, I got it. Oh, he's got it too. He got it first. But ESPN, man, I tell you what, I tried to go there, and it's just real hard. Big 12 games this Saturday. Kansas at Oklahoma State's the first one, 11 o'clock. It'll be on CBS. Isn't that game always on CBS? It feels like that's Oklahoma State game is always on CBS.
I feel like that.
I don't know why. We all pick KU, right? Does anybody think, I'll ask it this way. Does anybody think that in the last 3 minutes of this game it still had yet to be decided? Does anybody think this is still a game with 3 minutes left to go? Nobody does? I don't really either.
No.
Okay, so we all like KU to win at Oklahoma State one way or another. A game that doesn't have a big impact on the Big 12 race, but matters a lot to these two teams. Iowa State, of course, is very safe. The NCAA tournament wants to improve their seeding. Texas at 15-13 is probably still in, but they're at home against Iowa State. We'll start with Kurtz. Texas at home. We don't know about Kerwin Rauch. Don't know about Dylan Osikowski, really.
Yeah.
But against Iowa State at home, who do you like in that one?
Yeah, there's enough question marks there for Texas that I'll lean Iowa State, but you can tell I'm not super
You're not confident.
Not super confident in the Cyclones there.
What do you got, Flando? Clones or horns?
Give me the clones. I just, yeah. I mean, with the injury problems Texas is having, they're still obviously playing pretty well the way they played Baylor, but still, yeah, give me the clones in that one.
Shaka's team has been a roller coaster this year. I mean, his whole career there, really. But
Yeah.
this year, I mean, I made a tweet today pointing out that Texas is by far the second most talented team in the league, even without some of those guys. I mean, they've got, I think, 5 or 6 top 50 players on their roster.
And they look it, too. Like, when you watch them in person,
I mean,
And
so you never know. I think Texas is going to play really hard. I think at 15-13, they're probably on the wrong side of the bubble right now.
Yeah, probably.
Even with all their great net score, quality wins. I mean, they've got a lot of things in their favor, but I think the committee looks at a team and says, 2 games over 500.
At some point, they're like, you're 500.
So, I mean, they've got to win. So I think their backs are against the wall. I mean,
it's gonna go
really
in
comes
here.
down to if does Iowa State hit threes.
You
or
know
not.
he's picking Shaka.
I'm going with my guy Shaka. Of course he is.
But to make it feel better, I also like Texas in this game. I think I'm like Kurtz, though. Like, I'm not confident either way. I think it's going to be one of the best games of the weekend. Maybe not the best, but in the Big 12. Because I think, Texas got to be desperate to win. I like them, but not confident. But I would take Texas. West Virginia at Oklahoma. I assume everyone's taking OU at home over West Virginia. Anybody see West Virginia getting another dub here? Going to Norman and beating the Sooners? Kurtz, you're thinking about it.
I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility, but no, I would take Oklahoma.
OU?
I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility either. Look at me and Kurtz like agreeing on this podcast
you guys.
today.
Well, I would. I'll go before fan. I would put it out there. OU's going to hammer West Virginia and Norman. Not even possible.
I don't know.
You guys
I think
come
it's
back. You guys come
possible.
back on Monday and tell me.
Yeah, Monday and tell you.
CJ Moore stats from today.
Yeah.
Oklahoma's actually been statistically worse at home than they have on the road.
I mean,
That place is a
you
hornet's
saw
nest.
that.
I don't know how that would ever
I'll
happen.
say, I'll say a couple things. I think OU wins close, but for whatever reason, I think partially because Huggins knows what his roster is now.
Yeah.
They're playing better. West Virginia is playing better.
They are.
This is not the time you want to play them. And the one I look at is Iowa State goes there next week or midweek this week. So that's one to watch. That could be an upset is Iowa State going to West Virginia. So, but I think Oklahoma wins at home.
You're a smart guy. We'll say Chris Lowry off camera, last coffee with Chris last week, like word for word said, I don't want to play West Virginia again.
Yeah.
And I think for the reasons you're saying.
You're right, he did say
Like,
that.
they've kind of got it figured out. They're not a great team. We all know that. But they've kind of got, he knows his roster. They kind of got it figured out. They kind of know who they are.
They beat you up in Iowa State.
They're physical
Right.
as hell.
I mean,
Right.
I don't.
Yeah.
I think the coaches in the league would perceive Iowa State to be pretty soft.
Yeah.
Which would be the total opposite of West Virginia.
Big old
Correct.
softies.
Correct. So I like OU, though, because OU gives them, they'll be winners of 3 out of 4 and red hot, piping hot Steelers.
Piping hot.
When KU comes into that hornet's nest.
There we go.
at the Lloyd Noble Center.
PH.
Boy, I don't know.
There will be tens of people there, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Sooner
yeah.
fans and a lot of KU fans. But
Buzzing.
But I'm already going to pre-pick it. OU will beat KU at home this year in Norman.
Bob Huggins be shaking
Yeah.
the stat sheet and
The last two are the ones that really interest us, of course. Texas Tech on the road at TCU. Like, I know K-State Baylor is the best game for us to talk about because we're all K-State people and it's so important. But this is one I don't know, man. I mean, like, TCU at home against Texas Tech. Kurtz, just talk us through it. What's going to happen when the Red Raiders head to Fort Worth?
I'm tempted to pick TCU to win. Like, I
know, right?
TCU's so erratic, and they kind of pick and choose their spots. They have some awful losses and some great wins. Obviously, sweeping Iowa State counts towards that. The one thing I will say is that Texas Tech does feel like a team that can out-physical TCU. They're much more finesse kind of team. So because of that, I'll take Tech in a close game. But I think TCU's definitely a threat because TCU's kind of the the analogy I like to use with a team like that is kind of like if you light a firecracker and just put it in a tiny little box, like trying to predict where it's actually going to land is next to impossible because, TCU, it's like, what? I don't know. They can play these games where they're way up. They can play these games where they're way down. There doesn't seem to be a ton of in between. So I think that's an incredibly intriguing game.
It is.
It is. It's hard to pick. But you like Tech in a close one. Flando, or are you going with your buddy Kurtz and saying, "Oh, Tech in a close one"?
I think I am going to go with Kurtz here and say Tech gets it done. To me, I just think Tech got woken up by almost losing to Oklahoma State.
Oh, here he is. Listen to him. He's just exactly the guy you can't stand. Flando. Were you listening to him 8 seconds ago? No, you can have that opinion. That's fine.
No, and that's just what it is. Like, I'm trying to agree with Kurtz all night, and that's.
So you wanted to take Tech.
Yes.
I'm going back to Kurtz and I want Fan to pick it. Would you say, I don't want to put words in your mouth, would you say you think it's likely that TCU beats either Texas Tech or K-State, one of the two?
I do, and I think in the scenario that I've painted here that all three contenders are going to lose another game, I think it almost has to happen.
Right.
So, yeah, I would say yes.
Right. TCU or Tech? What happens here?
It's an interesting game. I mean, TCU's lost, 4 out of 5 games, but the one win was Iowa State, so that's a good win. Their good wins are Iowa State and Florida, and a decent one over Texas. So they do have some decent wins, but they also lose a lot of those games. In some ways, it seems like losing that overtime game to KU kind of deflated them. They recovered a little bit for Iowa State, and that could be matchup driven. I thought that West Virginia loss was pretty bad. I thought they had multiple chances to win that game, and they blew it. I mean, they just continued to make terrible play after terrible play in all 3 overtimes, it seemed like to me. So I just don't see them having enough to beat Tech at home. I mean, I hope that doesn't mean, as Kurt says, they're going to win one. That means they're going to beat us in his scenario, but I just don't see it. I hope that it's a close game that goes to about 48 overtimes.
Oh, I hope they're playing when K-State gets to Fort Worth on Monday.
Yes,
but they're like, you guys finish up. We got next.
I do think Tech probably wins that game.
I do too. I'm with all you guys. I think it's very close. I think Tech wins.
Yeah, I think Tech loses one more, and I'd take them losing the Iowa State game over this TCU game. Yeah,
I think, and I have a lot of K-State homer in me right now. I think it's more likely they beat Tech than K-State, which is not what I said 3 days ago. I've flipped on that because I think them playing this overtime game out in Morgantown and traveling back makes Saturday a little bit tougher.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
So I think they win. I think Tech wins. So I'm with everybody, but I think it's more likely TCU beats Tech on Saturday than K-State on Monday. That's probably just a lot of hope too. So let's get to the last game. We all know we've basically all picked K-State to win this. And for the most part, we all kind of have. Kurtz hasn't necessarily. So let's go through it. K-State Baylor, I want to hear a score, even though Grant KSU made me realize it's dumb to pick scores. We're going to pick scores.
Why is it dumb to pick scores?
Well, were you not here for that episode? So
no,
more or
I
less,
wasn't.
he said it in a way that somehow convinced me, oh my God, you're right. Like he said, like, why do we all pick scores? Like no one knows what the score is going to be. Just tell you think it's going to win. And he said it in a way that was like, oh my gosh, that's kind of right. But we're still picking scores.
I'm going to pick the right score,
We'll
Grant
pick the right
KSU.
score.
So
Get it.
who are you?
So give him tell Grant what the score's going to be.
Yeah.
And about the game, what's going to happen.
I'll say
Walk us through every possession, if you could.
So the tip-off is won by McCall Mayween.
We're finishing this podcast once the game starts.
Yeah. I think K-State will win. I think I just think there's too much on the line. I think this team has enough veteran leadership. I think Dean Wade will be a little bit better. I think it's a better matchup for him. I think there's more rest. I think he'll be more confident playing at home. Even the Iowa State game, when he had that half, that first half, Iowa State was about as bad as he played in Lawrence, but he, in the second half, with a little more sense of urgency and the crowd behind him, turned it around and had a pretty good half there before he got hurt and came out. So I think that will be the difference. That Dean Wade is a little bit better based on all those circumstances, and that's enough to beat Baylor again. And, I mean, quite frankly, K-State really didn't play all that well the first time around against Baylor. I know that there were some things tipped in the advantage of K-State because they didn't have Mason or McClure or whatever, but I don't think that was K-State's best effort, and they still won the game. I think they're capable of playing a lot better against Baylor. I'll take K-State to win 76-69.
That's dangerously close to what I was thinking. I'll go second because that's just different. I was going to take K-State 77-71, which is very close to his score, unfortunately. Same things. I think K-State played pretty darn well in Waco for the last 10 minutes. They were average to poor the first 30. I think they could be a little better than that. I think the rest, I think being at home, I think being against the defense that Fan has taught me, and you can see it with your own eyes, isn't great. I think K-State gets to the upper 70s, and I think that, being at home is just the difference. The home and the rest is the difference. I don't see K-State dropping this game to Baylor at home because, for the most part, and like Kurtz says, the Iowa State game has some similarities. For the most part, K-State hasn't lost a game like this in the conference this year. I don't think it starts against Baylor. I like K-State 77-71. Flando.
72-70 Cats.
Oh, well, you were terrified of these Bears, so it makes sense.
I think Baylor plays them really tough, and I think they do get some good minutes out of their guys like Makai Mason and stuff like that. I just have a feeling that something's going to come around, but
game-winning shot?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
I don't know about all that.
But 72-70?
Shoot, let's say it. Game-winning shot from the guy that was going to be a player of the game because he didn't play well against.
What were you going to say there?
He didn't play well against KU in his first bad game of the season. He's bound to bounce back and have a giant game in Ramlage. That's Barry Brown, the other senior leader. I think he has a great game, and I'll have him banking in a deep three for the win.
Flanders.
No, actually not a three.
No, stick with it.
No, I can't. It's a mid-range. It's a mid-range. Mid-range banked in.
No, I'm backing you up. I'm picturing it now like the Magruder three that beat Baylor, but it said banking in from the corner. That would be fantastic.
The only reason I think that'd be dumb is because my score is 72-70.
They could be down.
So we were down one.
Yeah, we're down one. He's taking a three.
Yeah, that could happen. That happens late. That happens sometimes.
It's true. I mean, seconds left, and he's chucking up a half quarter.
You're right.
You're right. I'm going back. He's hitting a three, banking it.
It's not like the Tennessee dude that took the charge against Ole Miss the other night. I
didn't see it. I know that game was.
You
really
need to watch
close,
that.
That's something. Fan, you're going to wrap us up here a little bit. Your score is probably the best thought out, and you'll have a chance to be an accurate one. Just because Kurt says the same, one of those numbers is the same in his score every time, right? You said 76 to what?
I said.
Don't act like you don't know.
Don't act like you don't know.
Oh, I did 69. Yeah, 76-69.
So, Fan, if you could tell us what the score will actually be, and just walk us through.
I didn't do that on purpose, damn it.
Okay.
I
don't know.
I'll start with my score. I said 74-63 on my KSO preview. I think it's going to be a slower paced game. Both teams play slow. I think we're going to play better defense than we did last time. We actually played pretty good offense in Baylor, and it may not be as pretty. I think it could be a similar game where K-State pulls away the last 10 minutes of the game to win comfortable. My biggest fear in this game is Scott Drew has his team rebounding on the offensive end at a crazy pace. I mean, they rebound over 40% of their missed shots in Big 12 play, which is ridiculous, kind of in today's basketball. They've had 4 or 5 games at 50%. Well, I mean, can you imagine rebounding half your misses? Half your misses. It's pretty impressive. So that's a big concern to me. They've got 2 of the best 3 offensive rebounding individual players in the league. So K-State needs to really box out, know where those guys are. But I just think we're the better team.
Right.
I think, and I said in my post on KSO, eventually playing bad defense is going to catch up with you. I mean, you can't rely on just scoring. I think we've seen it with Fred Hoiberg off Iowa State teams. Eventually, they lose games they shouldn't lose. Eventually, having the depth issues Baylor has and the injuries are going to catch up with you. So I just think while they have a nice little 3-game streak and a nice win over Iowa State, they've got a lot of wins over the other 3 wins over the bottom half of the league.
Right.
And I don't think they're coming to Manhattan and beating K-State.
And
I don't think Barry Brown's going to let him. Barry Brown's going to have a big game. He's got to be really ticked off at what he did Monday night. Even Bruce talked about it on his show today. I listened to the show on the way over here about how disappointed. He said he and Barry texted back and forth till 1 a.m.
I believe it.
After that game. And I think Barry's going to bring it, and I think K-State's going to pull away and win fairly comfortably down the stretch.
I wouldn't be stunned, and I think you guys are probably – we all have K-State scoring in the mid to high 70s or low 70s. I mean, if we're all thinking it, I think this could be a game where Barry gets near that 30-point mark and probably has a pretty – I know he didn't play great against their zone the first time. I think he was a little more nicked up at that point. He still had 13 or 16 in that game.
Yeah.
I could see this being a game where he has a big game. And then the thing you say, Fan, about the offensive rebounds, that is terrifying. If nothing else, we know that K-State will be aware of that because Bruce Weber's told us now for 2 weeks, one, that he's been more concerned with the Baylor game than even the Kansas game from an emotional, physical standpoint, even before the KU game. And then he told us after that first one, the first Baylor game, that all the clips they show their team about Baylor are just them killing the offensive boards and just going after it and going after it. Now, will Baylor still do it? Maybe. I mean, that's still a fear. I'm not saying it's going to eliminate it, but it's not going to be because K-State wasn't scared of or worried about that and preparing for it.
I forgot about that. Barry was pretty obviously wobbly and had something wrong with him in that first game, and he still played really well.
He was wearing like a little more protection on the knee, right?
Yeah, and so I think I'm not saying he's going to score 30, but if he does, I'll say I said he was going to score 30.
That is, let me tell you, from this fancy broadcasting school they put me in, that is well done. That is how you do it. You float it, but you don't
commit to it.
You don't commit, but you float it so that if it's there, you dipped your toe in the water already. So you can.
And here's the thing that we showed in the game at Waco. Baylor rebounded 47% of their misses in that game. We rebounded 49% of ours.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing.
We beat them at their own game, and I think we can. I mean, that's always the thing as a coach. You think if we play zone, can we rebound?
Exactly.
And that's the thing. And we've got pretty good rebounders too. Mac and Barry and Mac and Dean and X and even Barry are great rebounders. Cam once in a while. So
4 boards.
Boards against KU.
I can see it happen.
May 11 team.
Dean had 6 offensive boards in Waco. So
right. I think that will be a factor, and I think K-State's going to be locked in. It'll be a lot of fun to watch. We're fortunate. I think all of us know this. As stressful as it is as a fan right now, and as nervous as you might be as a fan right now, like, hey man, your team is 13 games into this thing and tied for the lead and has 2 home games left and a road game against 3 teams they've already beat. It's just it could end poorly. I don't know. That's not me dipping my toe in either, Kurtz. That's not me taking the tip you just told me.
It started poorly.
But it started poorly.
And it's ended really good.
It did. So be happy with where you're at. That's what I'm saying. Just enjoy it. Enjoy the game Saturday. Enjoy listening to John Kurtz on K-Man. Enjoy listening to Fan on K-Man on Finalysis. That's all you got to listen to is those 2 guys, maybe me. So for Grant Planners, KSU_fan or Jimmy, John Kurtz, thank you to the Tallgrass Tap House. Our waitress was fantastic tonight. Really appreciate her. I don't know. Tell your friends.
KS.